Before we get started, we got to talk to you about something. Well, it's not a secret. It's what's near and dear to our hearts. It is that love of the moving image. It is the love of film. It is the love of cinema and watching as much of it as we possibly can from all the corners of the world. Because I mean, really, that's kind of what we're here for as film fans and film lovers and film goers and film experiencers, as it were, which means that well, I got to recommend something to you because there is a streaming service that I personally love. I think it's one of the better ones out there, especially if you're looking for some cinema that maybe is a little off the beaten track, but it's got a that maybe some you want some world cinema, you want some documentaries, you want sort of a wide variety of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else. And you know what? It's all in one place. It's all at filmmovementplus.com, which, at least from my perspective, is probably one of the better streaming services out there for film lovers. And this month in July, they've got a lot of really interesting stuff. They have new stuff coming every week, and again, it's one of those services that I can't recommend enough because they had one that just launched called Volcano, which is a really sort of interesting sort of family story that goes back and forth. It's set in the Ukraine, and it was a festival favorite all across the world. And it's a film that you're not gonna see in most places, but when you sit down and you experience it, it's a special thing. And there's films like well, there's actually some Olympic films coming up on the service in the next couple of weeks, sort of in time with the Summer Olympics starting up, and it's a film called Over the Limit. It's a documentary just about how the Russian system for training athletes will kind of push boundaries and sort of, I don't know, stretch the rules and really take things to some really sort of extremes. It's one of those modern sports docs that really is akin to something like a 30 for 30 or something you would see on ESPN, and it's really a fantastic sort of look inside uh, the Olympic system and sort of its beauty, but also its corruption at the same time. It's a great look, and it's starting on Film Movement Plus later this month. But there's that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a 4K restoration of one of the best Mexican films of all time called Espaldas Mojados, aka Wetbacks. Again, if you want to check out some Mexican cinema, and I mean, again, even as a fan, I did not know how rich the Mexican cinema scene really is. And I mean, there is so much out there just to really experience and watch, and there's some great stuff. There's also the premiere of a really fun film that played at Cannes a little while back called Caro Diario, which Film Movement has on DVD and Blu-ray as well if you want to pick that up. But again, it's a self-reflective comedy that's a lot of fun, and there's just, again, there is such a wide-ranging variety of interesting foreign stuff, documentary, sports documentaries. There's a boxing documentary as well in correlation with the Summer Olympics called Hands of God, which is coming to the service soon as well. Which again, I've seen and it's fantastic. But it's one of those things where if you love film, I really think you should check out FilmMovementPlus.com. And because you're a listener of the show and you love film just as much as we do, we've got something special for you, because when you go to filmmovementplus.com and sign up for a scant $5.99, which is basically the price of a coffee, well, a fully loaded coffee anyway over at Starbucks, but not only do you get free 30 days to try it out, but if you sign up with the promo code SEATS, you get 50% off for the first 3 months after that, which really it's a steal. If you love cinema and you want to check out some really interesting foreign cinema from all across the world, not only here, but from basically any country you can think of, sign up, go to filmmovementplus.com for a scant $5.99, and please enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
It's those legends of the things that go bump in the night that really make you think, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with, once more, as always. My name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming that you do. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google. It's all good, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, that'd be great. Also, you can find us on the social media, as the kids call it. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of good times. Plus, we're on the TikTok at In the Seats as well for just for the fun of it, basically. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large, because we love writing and talking about the moving image, and we love it when you come read about it, so please stop on by. On this episode, we've got a good one. We got a fun one. We are talking about the new film on video on demand platforms now called Let Us In. It's a spooky little one. It's basically for the young adult crowd. It's basically the story of a spirited 12-year-old girl and her best friend looking to uncover the sudden disappearances of several teens in their small towns. In their small town, realizing something deeper might be happening, they have to go up against some forces that they couldn't have even imagined in their wildest dreams. It's a fun little scary, like it's trying to, it's, you know, a little scary, but it's a little fun. It's based on some, you know, old wives' tales and myths and all thrown in together, and it's a fun ride. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with director Craig Moss to talk about the film and just sort of the inspiration therein and how it got started, and so very much more. We had a fun talk with Craig, and I hope you enjoy it, because I certainly know that I did. All right, now I mean, I guess first off, just congratulations on the film, man. I really enjoyed it, and I mean, I'm Canadian, so I was a little oblivious to sort of the abuse that Van had to go through to get a lot of this stuff done. Can you walk me through, I guess, sort of finding this story and finding him as a subject, just in order to be able to tell this story?
Yeah. I've known Van. I knew Van for several years before we started this film. And, you know, after the 2016 election, Trump getting elected, Van sat down with me over a cup of coffee and just basically, poured his soul out on what he planned to do over these next 4 years, and basically said, he was going to do everything he could to advance criminal justice reform, a fight he's been fighting his whole life during the Trump years. And he would be willing to engage with the Trump administration, any Republican in power, to get something done. And as a documentary filmmaker, who is passionate about, documenting, observing real life social justice fights in a really honest way, I felt like having a front row seat, being able to capture, Van and his team trying to get a bipartisan bill passed, trying to bring people together on addiction in this issue, would be a really important story to tell.
No, absolutely. And I mean, just in watching it, I mean, I think, I mean, I guess the thing that struck me the most was just how much being bipartisan has become a dirty word, and just sort of the fight like towards that. And I'm kind of curious, like as you're following him and going through the process, like, is there anything that kind of surprised you? Because I mean, just to see the boots on the ground, like everyone has the best intentions, but there's so much combativeness on an issue that really, where there shouldn't be one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I went into this film already feeling like, everyone talks about, working across the aisle is impossible. You cannot do it. Nothing ever gets done in Washington. So I knew that narrative. That's the headline that the media puts out there that everyone knows. And I was surprised at just how perilous, this journey is to engage across the aisle. I think a lot of people on both sides, come at these issues with, there's people feel very strongly and have very strong reasons to feel that, strongly. And so I, as Van, went into the lion's den, started to engage with this administration, I felt like my role was to, try to get as intimate and close and empathetic as I could to him and his team, but also to really try to understand the complexities around this. Why did certain advocates on the left oppose the bill at the beginning? Why are people on the right for the bill and for criminal justice reform? I don't think people understand that. Why are people against it? So it was really a process of trying to be there, be present, capture it in real time, the highs and the lows, and also try to really honestly capture a variety of different perspectives so that audiences could have as full of a picture as I could, capture in 86 minutes.
And I think that's the thing that really stands out for me because like you said before, being bipartisan and working across the aisle, it's lip service that gets paid time and time again, no matter the political hall you're walking in. But to see someone actually try to do it feels very different. And I'm kind of curious, was Van sort of on board for you, basically showing this story warts and all?
Yeah, I give him a lot of credit. Most public figures would not have a documentary filmmaker, camera crew in their life at such a fraught moment where they were attempting to do something really, frankly, unpopular and controversial in a lot of circles. And he understood the importance of this fight being captured. He understood the importance of me speaking and documenting opponents to the bill on camera. Van is very misunderstood in the media, in the public. I think this is my opinion, and one of my reasons for making the film was, for people that love Van, people that don't like Van, it's just like, watch this film to get a better understanding of who this person is, why he's doing this work. And I think it's important because I think the strategy that he's putting out there, the activism that Van, Lewis, Jessica, their whole team, are putting into the world is something that deserves a lot of attention, and it deserves a very honest discussion around where it succeeds, where it has an impact, and also where the struggles are, where the challenges are, where it might fall short.
No, you're absolutely right. It's such an important issue that needs to be pushed forward. And in watching the film, so I think I had a bit of sort of like almost a revelation just in terms of how we consume media, because like you say, Van is this very misunderstood subject, but we consume everything in such bits and bytes, and it's really makes for such a skewed view on not just the world, but on people who want to try to make the world a better place. Because I think it just sums up with his opinion on Twitter. Because on one end, you have to say fuck Twitter, but it still bothers you when people are shit talking you about on Twitter. And I'm kind of curious, during this whole process, like, is there anything that you saw that kind of surprised you that maybe you didn't expect to see?
Well, I think one of the most surprising things about documenting this story was just what is possible. You know, Obviously a lot of the attention in the film is put on, Van and his team when they're being hit from all sides and really at a low, but also like, being in a diner in West Virginia and seeing leaders from rural West Virginia, white, conservative, open up and empathize and connect with activists on the front lines of the addiction fight in South Central Los Angeles, who are progressive. Just seeing those connections happen. It sounds simple but it really is an amazing thing to witness these barriers that have been drawn being taken down, and having really frank conversations across these dividing lines, hearing them share, hearing activists from Los Angeles just share really, really openly. This is why the vote that you made for President Trump, this is how it affects me and my community, and seeing them listen, and vice versa, them telling the activists from Los Angeles, this is why we support this man. those conversations in a respectful but raw way are rarely captured, and I don't think happen enough.
Do you think that's how we move forward? Because I mean, it's one of those things where we get preconditioned to sort of the bits and the bytes that get fed at us. But when, like you say, when people get in the room and are willing to have the conversations, positive things tend to happen. Why do you think we don't get enough of, I guess, maybe sort of the willingness to have the conversation or at least get into the room?
I think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of hurt that is justified. A lot of communities that have experienced a lot of pain and could rightfully feel that there's not a reason to show up in those rooms to reach across the aisle. There's a moment in the film where Lewis L. Reed, one of the leading activists and organizer on Van's team, confronts face to face one of the chief opponents of the First Step Back on the right, a conservative attorney, and has to really face the sort of injustice of that moment, the inhumanity of that moment head on. And I think that is a really, really tough thing to ask of people. And your question about how do we move forward, dialogue,
Yeah.
like disarming, like as much as possible, conversations, not just from on the left and right, but amongst the left. There's amongst the right, there's a lot of divisions that you see in this movie. Some of the fraudest fights are between the left and between the right, between Jared and pro incarceration forces on the right, between Van and Cut 50 and advocates on the left who were fighting for a more comprehensive bill from the get-go. And I hope one of the biggest takeaways of the movie is dialogue, finding ways to collaborate, understand each other's political views and strategies can help. I'm not saying it's the only thing. I don't want to be Pollyanna about it, but I think when people sit down and talk through things in the film, at least in the story we were capturing, there tend to be breakthroughs that happened.
How do you carry that weight as a filmmaker? Because I mean, you want to be able to tell these stories, you want to be able to give it sort of the due that you need, but there will be audiences out there who may think that, okay, it's just another part of media, it's being manipulated and it's being sort of spun to a certain political bent. Like, I'm kind of curious from your end, how do you try to sort of walk that middle line in a story where we're trying to get to that middle line and sort of find sort of compromise and sort of humanity in order to get sort of things done in a positive way?
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, I would never make the case that I'm walking a middle line in this film or anything. I'm following a story.
Well, for sure.
And
Yeah.
I'm following. There's a protagonist, Van Jones. There's his team, and for me, I just try to see the humanity in people, and that is what I am after. I am, politics, social justice work, like this. These are, at the end of the day, it's a group of people. It's people that are working to make change. It's people who are impacted by the actions that are taken. And every single person we filmed with, I just tried to walk in the door, whether it was, Senator Cory Booker, Van Jones, activists in Los Angeles, or a Jared Kushner. I tried to walk in the door with just, a lot of questions, trying to get understanding, trying to form a connection, not judgment. This is not a gotcha film. There is no one in this movie that I, tried to throw in a bad light or just vilify. Maybe there's a few people that, senators on the right that don't
They
come
did
across
it
too well,
themselves, but yeah.
Tom Cotton, but Jeff Sessions, I can't control that. But it's a matter of being an empathetic, curious human being and trying to connect with the people that you're telling a story about. My mentors at Cartemquin Films always taught me, you never look down the lens of your camera at people. You don't walk in the room trying to judge them, trying to, put them in a corner. You walk in trying to understand them. And that's the ethic that I approach in all my work in this film in particular.
Do you think that's really sort of the dividing line between filmmaking and journalism? Because I mean, there might be some audiences out there who will interpret this as just a form of journalism, but I mean, I don't. This is filmmaking pure and true, because I mean, when it comes down to journalism, you're not necessarily trying to engender trust from your subjects, but you and Van and sort of the journey that you both went on, that's exactly what you had to do.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have nothing but love and admiration for journalists and journalism, but it's different. Documentary filmmaking is a broad term that could apply to, there's so many different kinds of filmmaking. But for this film, yeah, it's, you spend years, I was in Van's life and his team's life and these activist lives for 3-4 years, and there's an intimacy, there's a closeness, there's a bond that you develop. You try to have an ethic of being really honest and fair, and that's what, but you can be close to somebody and intimate and in their life, and also strive for balance and integrity and fairness in the storytelling toward them and their critics. And I tried to develop that kind of, relationship with Van. And thankfully, he's been attacked so many times throughout his life, ousted from the White House by Glenn Beck. And, you name it, every decade, Van has been, attacked for some form of his activism. So he is very used to people, attacking, judging him in a vitriolic way. So I think he was very open to the idea of filmmakers like my brother Lance, producer on the film, myself, and our team, coming in to include the hits and the low points, but also to try to empathize and understand what he was doing.
No, and I think you did that really beautifully because, I mean, I only know Van from what I see on CNN, but after watching your film, I really do get more of a sense of a person who genuinely gives a damn about the world in general. And I mean, I think that's kind of the important thing that we're getting lost along the way, because we see the vitriol and we see the news bites, but there are a fair number of people in the halls of power who do want to do good, but sort of the messaging gets lost along the way in terms of sort of having to navigate the political system, which is such a fascinating and really kind of, I mean, on one end depressing, but it's still very sort of compelling at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, one of the beautiful things about documentary is it gives you a way to reflect on the recent past, and it gives you an opportunity to have a deeper conversation, to really have a deeper engagement. And so my favorite films that I've ever seen have humanized and dove into really difficult political social fights, like The War Room, D.A. Pennebaker,
Right.
Robert Drew, Crisis, when the moment when schools were desegregated, that really humanized and created an emotional 90-minute experience that you could then talk about what happened. And that's my hope and prayer for this film.
And you know what? I think you did that and then some, because it's a film that obviously there's an issue and there's things going on around that, but we really got to know about the person, which I think really gives, and the people involved in it. And I think that's what gives it more credence, and it gives it more, it allows audiences and allows people who may not be affected by this issue to really sort of get more invested in it. And I think you've done a beautiful thing, and I think you've made a beautiful film.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. At the end of the day, it's in that beginning of the film and the end of the film, you see, people who are actually behind bars, who are, suffering the injustice that this whole movie is. It's a political fight about those individuals, and even though their stories are not maybe front and center, my hope is that at the end of the day, it all comes back to a connection to the people who are dealing with addiction and incarceration right now.
And when people get to know about people, maybe positive things actually change. And I think this is a good step in the right direction. And thank you so much for the time today, Brandon. Congratulations again on the film.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, for anybody who did not catch the world premiere at Tribeca Film Festival last week, we are having a DC premiere at the AFI Docs Film Festival on Wednesday, June 23rd at 5 p.m. in person. And it'll also be streaming as part of the AFI Docs Film Festival. So 2 opportunities to see it in the coming week.
Fantastic. That's a great festival, and it's a great opportunity to see films like this one. And thank you again, man, for that. And thank you for the time.
Thanks, David.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.